Want more HFY stories? Smash that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications.
The starship Vexilar cut through the void like a scalpel through flesh, its hull scarred by 1,000 lesser conquests. On the bridge, Captain Forlag of the Cthar Dominion surveyed the target, a third-rate world designated Sector 734, a primitive mudball orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. His kind, the Vorgoth, were apex predators of the galaxy. Their consciousness is a hive mind of shared cunning and brutality. They had enslaved 17 species, glassed 3 planets, and turned a fourth into a hunting preserve for their elite. This world, Earth, was to be their next playground. Forlag's symbiotic parasite, a writhing mass of bioluminescent tendrils named Xylos, pulsed with anticipation, its thoughts bleeding into his own. Easy prey, Xylos hissed. Asterisk primitive. Ours, asterisk. The descent was brutal. The Vorgoth warships tore through Earth's pathetic orbital defenses with contemptuous ease, their energy lances scorching the sky like divine wrath. Cities fell in hours. Humanity's armies, their weapons and tactics laughably outdated, were swept aside like leaves in a storm. Forlag landed his personal vessel in what the humans called Central Park, a patch of greenery in the heart of a sprawling concrete canyon. He stepped onto the grass, his 6 limbs absorbing the shock, his chitinous armor gleaming under the pale sun. Xylos writhed on his back, tasting the air, savoring the fear radiating from the fleeing creatures below. They scatter, Xylos mused. No challenge. But Forlag noticed something odd. Amidst the chaos, a small, bipedal creature with fur on its head remained. It was not fleeing. Instead, it was kneeling beside another, smaller creature, a sphere of soft flesh and matted fur. The larger one, Forlag's translators labeled it a dog, was whining, its body trembling. The smaller one, a cat, was purring, a sound that grated on Vorgoth's senses like nails on slate. Forlag raised a clawed hand, ready to incinerate them both. But Xylos stopped him. Wait, the parasite whispered. Observe. Forlag watched as the human, a female with wide, terrified eyes, cradled the cat in her arms. The dog whined again, pressing its wet nose into her leg. The human's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear. But then something changed. Her breathing slowed. Her pupils dilated. The trembling ceased. She became utterly still, a statue carved from tension and purpose. Forlag's advanced sensors detected a cascade of neurochemicals flooding her system, a state of hyperfocus her species called the zone. The dog, sensing the shift, fell silent, its ears pricked forward. The cat, unbothered, began to knead the human's chest with its paws, its purring growing louder. A Vorgoth shock trooper, its armor splattered with human blood, lumbered toward them. Captain, these are the last, the trooper grunted, its voice a guttural rasp. Shall I terminate them? Forlag hesitated, Xylos's curiosity overriding his bloodlust. No, he commanded. Let us see what the little one does. The shock trooper snarled but obeyed, backing away. The human remained frozen, her eyes locked on the cat. Then, slowly, deliberately, she reached into a pouch on her belt and produced a small, silver device. Forlag's scanners identified it as a can opener. The human's hands moved with impossible precision, her fingers dancing over the can, her focus absolute. The dog whined again, its tail thumping against the ground. The cat stopped purring, its green eyes fixed on the human. The can opened with a sharp pop. The human scooped out a grayish paste and offered it to the cat on her fingertip. The cat sniffed it once, then began to eat, its rough tongue rasping against her skin. The dog whined louder, its body vibrating with need. The human glanced at the dog, her hyperfocus unbroken. She offered a bit of the paste to the dog as well. The dog devoured it in a single gulp, then licked her hand, its tail wagging furiously. Forlag stared, baffled. This is their apex predator? Xylos scoffed. Asterisk pathetic. They waste their potential on affection. Asterisk. The Vorgoth began their harvest. They rounded up the remaining humans, herding them into makeshift camps. The humans, stripped of their weapons, were docile, their spirits broken. Forlag observed them from his command tent, sipping a nutrient slurry while Xylos fed on the despair of the captives. They are cattle, Xylos mused. Barely sentient, Forlag agreed. The Vorgoth had encountered species like this before, creatures of instinct, easily dominated. But something nagged at him. The female human with the cat and dog, she had not been afraid. Not truly. Her fear had been a mask, a fleeting emotion before the hyperstate had taken over. That night, Forlag received a report. A hunting party of Vorgoth had gone missing in the ruins of a human dwelling they called a subdivision. Forlag dispatched a scout, a young Vorgoth named Kroth, to investigate. Kroth returned an hour later, his armor dented, his tendrils frayed. "Captain," he gasped, his voice trembling. "We found them. Or, what was left of them." Forlag's curiosity piqued. "Explain." Kroth's mandibles clicked. The humans, they fought back. Not with weapons. With tools. And animals. Forlag's blood chilled. "Elaborate." Kroth described a scene of carnage. The Vorgoth had entered a house, expecting easy prey. Instead, they were ambushed. A pack of small, furry creatures, dogs, had attacked, their jaws tearing at Vorgoth limbs, their bites injecting a venom that caused paralysis. Larger, striped cats had moved with silent speed, their claws raking across armor, their eyes glowing in the dark. And the humans, they had not fought like soldiers. They had fought like artisans. One human, a male with wild hair, had wielded a hammer with terrifying precision, shattering Vorgoth exoskeletons with single blows. Another, a female with a scar across her face, had used a knife to sever nerve cords, her movements economical and deadly. Forlag's mind reeled. The humans were not cattle. They were craftsmen of violence. He ordered the camp to be placed on high alert. But it was too late. The next night, the counterattack came. It began not with a roar, but with a whisper. A low, guttural sound echoed through the camp, a sound that chilled Vorgoth blood. Then, the shadows moved. Dozens of dogs, their eyes glowing in the dark, poured from the ruins, their barks a symphony of death. Behind them, cats moved like ghosts, their claws glinting. The Vorgoths scrambled for their weapons, but the humans were already among them. Forlag watched in horror as his troops were dismantled. A human with a rake swept Vorgoth legs from under them, their bodies crashing to the ground. Another with a shovel dug pits, trapping shock troopers in their own graves. The dogs and cats fought alongside them, a chaotic, terrifying alliance. Forlag's first officer, a Vorgoth named Rax, fell to the ground, his throat torn out by a pack of snarling terriers. Forlag raised his plasma rifle, but before he could fire, a blur of orange and black slammed into him. A large tabby cat, its eyes burning with intelligence, sank its claws into his chest plate, its teeth gnawing at a weak point. Forlag roared in pain, blasting the cat with a pulse of energy. It fell, but not before its claws had scored a deep gash in his armor. Xylos hissed in fury, its tendrils lashing out. They are animals. Vermin. Forlag ignored the parasite, his mind racing. The humans were not fighting for survival. They were fighting with purpose. Every move was calculated. Every weapon wielded with the same terrifying competence he had seen in the female with the cat. They were not soldiers. They were artisans of war, and their workshop was the entire city. The Vorgoth were in disarray. Their disciplined formations had collapsed, replaced by a desperate, chaotic melee. Forlag rallied his remaining troops, his voice a guttural roar. Fall back to the ships. We are leaving this accursed world. But as they retreated, the humans pursued. Not with guns, but with fire. They hurled Molotov cocktails, the flames licking at Vorgoth armor, melting it into slag. They used traps, hidden pits, snares made of wire, explosives fashioned from human technology. The dogs harried their flanks, nipping at their heels, while the cats scaled walls, dropping on them from above. Forlag's ship, the Vexilar, was under attack. A group of humans, led by the female with the cat, had breached the landing ramp, their makeshift weapons glinting in the emergency lights. Forlag met them at the airlock, his plasma rifle raised. The female stood in front, her cat perched on her shoulder, its tail twitching. The dog growled at her feet, its bared teeth a white slash in the darkness. Forlag's translator caught her words, a low, guttural sound. "You took our home," she said. "Now we take yours." Forlag laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You think you can defeat us?" We are the Vorgoth. We are the apex of creation. Asterisk, the female's eyes narrowed. We're not trying to defeat you, she said. We're trying to teach you a lesson. She lunged then, not at Forlag, but at his rifle. Her movements were blindingly fast, her hands a blur. She twisted the barrel, her strength surprising, and slammed the butt into his chest. Forlag staggered, his breath knocked from his lungs. The dog seized the opportunity, sinking its teeth into his leg. Forlag roared, kicking the dog away, but the female was already on him, her cat's claws raking across his face. Forlag swung his rifle, but she ducked, rolling under his guard. She came up behind him, a pipe in her hand, and brought it down on his knee joint. The sound of shattering chitin echoed in the airlock. Forlag collapsed, his leg uselessly broken. The Vorgoth remaining on Earth were either dead or in full retreat. The Vexilar lifted off, its engines screaming as it clawed its way into orbit. Forlag lay on the bridge floor, his leg throbbing, his face a mask of pain and humiliation. Xylos was silent, its tendrils limp. The humans had not just defeated them. They had dismantled them, piece by piece, with tools and animals. Forlag's mind replayed the images, the dogs with their venomous bites, the cats with their silent strikes, the humans with their impossible precision. They were not a primitive species. They were a species of specialists, each one a master of their own craft. And when cornered, they became something else entirely. The Vexilar jumped to warp, leaving Earth behind. Forlag ordered the fleet to abandon Sector 734, to place it on a quarantine list, to warn all Vorgoth to never, ever return. The humans were not prey. They were predators of a different kind. They did not hunt for sport or glory. They hunted because it was in their nature. They were the artisans of annihilation, and their workshop was the galaxy. On Earth, the female human knelt in the ruins of Central Park, her cat purring in her arms. The dog rested its head on her knee, its tail thumping gently. The battle was over, but the cost was high. Bodies littered the ground, Vorgoth and human alike. The female closed her eyes, her hyper-focus receding, replaced by exhaustion. She had fought not for glory, not for survival, but for something else. For the cat, for the dog, for the home they had shared. She was not a soldier. She was a guardian. The sun rose over the city, casting long shadows. The humans emerged from their hiding places, their faces grim, their eyes determined. They had won, but they knew the Vorgoth would return. And when they did, they would be ready. The artisans of war had sharpened their tools. The predators of Earth had learned to hunt in the dark. Forlag sat on the bridge of the Vexilar, staring at the stars. His leg was healed, but the humiliation remained. Xylos stirred on his back. They were lucky, the parasite hissed. Flukes of evolution, Forlag did not answer. He knew the truth. The humans were not lucky. They were something else. They were the universe's greatest artists, and their medium was fear. He had seen it in the female's eyes, in the dog's bite, in the cat's claws. They were not just a species. They were a force of nature, and he had made them his enemy. The Vexilar sailed on, into the endless dark. Forlag knew he would never forget the day the Vorgoth had tried to conquer Earth. And he knew, with a certainty that chilled his soul, that the galaxy would never be the same. The humans were coming, and they were bringing their pets.